Netflix. You laughing at me? Hey, sometimes you just need to chill out and just watch weird,
It's not weird.
brainless activity.
It literally took over the whole world, at least
Yeah.
America.
Charles, you can go ahead and click that mute button.
It's
I do believe we have a quorum. I do know that Sharita Allen and Stephen Hinkle and Corey Everett have let us know they will not be able to attend today. I believe Daniela Peterson is on her way, but we will start in the meantime since I see that we have a quorum. There we go. Daniela, I've just mentioned your name.
Oh, thank you.
You missed the grand event.
Make the grand thing. Yeah.
So welcome to everybody. Thank you for your interest and attendance here today. I'd like to ask for our customary moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. Let us stand, please. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Members of the public, any comments this morning? Or topics, learning issues, things that are not learning? Seems not like it. Right, thank you very much. Then I'd like to call on our usual suspects. There he is. Take us through the recognitions, please.
I'm happy to. Good morning, all.
Morning.
Today, it gives me great pleasure to recognize two outstanding members of our Carter family who went above and beyond the call of duty during January snowfall. Brent Matthews and Lee Raines from our facilities team showed us what true dedication looks like through their quick thinking and commitment to our clients' safety. On January 10th, as the snow piled up across Chattanooga, our caravan service was racing against time to get all clients home safely before the roads became too dangerous to drive. During one of the final runs of the day, we hit a snag on Rose Terrace, which you may know is on Missionary Ridge and is at quite an incline. One of our vehicles couldn't make it up the snow-covered hill to the client's home. What happened next really shows why the Carter team is special. When they got the call for help, Brent and Lee were already out and about in our sand truck. We have a truck for this purpose and dealing with the tough conditions. They headed straight to Missionary Ridge on Rose Terrace to help. After trying to treat the road, they quickly realized they couldn't get ahead of the snow, and there was no way that caravan cutaway bus was going to make it up the hill safely. But they didn't throw in the towel. Instead, they came up with a very practical solution. Working together, they helped get the client from the caravan vehicle into their four-wheel drive sand truck, making sure they got our client home safe. Then they went back to help our driver get that vehicle back down the ridge as well. This story stands out because it shows how everyone at Carter pulls together when things get rough. We're a small team, but we do stick together. Brent and Lee didn't hesitate to jump in and help the caravan crew, putting our mission to serve the community first. Their teamwork that day was incredible, and they worked side by side to make sure both our client and their colleague were safe. Their actions remind us that Carter's real strength isn't just our vehicles or equipment, it's our people. We've got dedicated folks who step up and do whatever it takes to serve our community. They showed that great service isn't just about doing your job, it's about going that extra mile. For their outstanding service, quick thinking, and absolute dedication to our clients and colleagues, it's my honor to present Brent Matthews and Lee Raines, the March Carter Ambassador Award. They truly represent what makes Carter such a vital part of the community. Please join me in congratulating these outstanding members of our team.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Can you put us in?
I can't, you're good.
This way or that way?
Okay, guys, on three, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much for that. Our next topic on the agenda is confirmation of the minutes of this meeting. Are there any comments or questions from the minutes as distributed?
I wanted to look at page 8 and 9 on the minutes. At the board meeting last month, I wasn't here, but you had made a comment about the seating on the new minibus that we'll have. And at a previous board meeting, I had brought to our attention what I enjoy about this particular board is our forward thinking. And unfortunately, in our packet, and I should have sent an email to Dina, we have gone back to using outdated language. So I just want us, if we can, to adopt a more inclusive way of talking about seating and things that affect individuals with disabilities. So if we could take out handicap in the public documents, especially, I mean, if you use it, that's fine, but publicly, I feel that Carter should represent more forward thinking.
I can't recall whatever language I might have used, but that would hardly come as a surprise to anyone. I can't remember what happened 2 minutes ago.
When I was teaching in Atlanta 10 years ago, we didn't use this language, so it's just very outdated.
So I don't have the pages in front of me.
It's
Could you give us the language that you prefer to see improved?
Well, we use disabled, and Charles told me that he looked at the Nashville website and they use disabled. But in 2025, accessible, not accessible, but accessible is the language that is commonly used, accessible seating. Because on that bus, it is for disabled individuals like myself, but it is also just an accessible seat for someone that maybe has a stroller. It's an accessible seat for someone who was maybe playing down a Coolidge Park and they stubbed their toe. I mean, so you want to just be inclusive with the language that you use. And so, and handicap is just, it's outdated. It's been outdated.
I'm sure that nobody has any violent objection to changing the minutes.
You can get that.
Can we amend them? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as distributed, besides the change and correction that we just discussed?
I'll make a motion to approve with the changes.
I second.
All right, thank you very much. Minutes will be accepted. Before we get into the next part of the agenda, I'd like to just make a general observation. All our board meetings are important. This one today is particularly important because this is the final step in our budget planning process. The board is requested to review and approve the budget proposal that is going to be presented to us by Carter Leadership. There's still a journey for it to go after this, and I would like to ask our board members to almost wear two hats today. One is your hat as a Carter board member with your usual very professional and competent way of working in support of Carter leadership, but also asking the right questions and seeking the right answers to ensure that the actions are aligned with our mission of delivering high quality transit services as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So look at it through that lens, but recognizing that there is still quite a journey for our budget submission to follow before a final decision will be made from the side of the city and county for that matter. But recognize that there are other stakeholders. And I would almost ask you to place yourself in the shoes of a city administrator, of a councillor, who has to decide and evaluate, no doubt, what I could anticipate to be many conflicting financial requests. I probably would not be exaggerating to say that for every dollar that the city has available to spend, there must be at least $10 worth of asks. And so that trade-offs have to be made. And I would like to ensure that we put enough scrutiny, and I would almost say critical analysis, on our budget request that we are hopefully to pass today, so that each of us feels secure in our heart and in our mind that it has bulletproof credibility. So I would encourage you today to ask probing questions, not only from your perspective as a board member, but from the perspective of people who will form a vital part of the approval process after it has left our area of responsibility. I think it's really important for the future mission of Carter and our often cited quest to effect a dramatic upgrade of the quality of services that we offer to our community. We'll no doubt discuss more under the budget problem, but I wanted to make sure that we are all aware of the import of the agenda topic that we have to deal with today. So with that, if I could move on to agenda item number 7, start updates, please.
Yes, if I may, Chair Denison, routinely, board members, good morning, good to see all of you. Routinely, I would do a CEO report in this section. But because I'll be doing a heftier part of the presentation for the budget, today we're doing something a little bit different. And I've invited 3 of our staff members, our directors, to give you updates from their sections. And we'll start to rotate this as we go through the year. Really for 2 reasons. I'd like you to have the opportunity to meet the management team, get to know them, and then also hear directly from them on the work that they're doing. So this will be across all of our different disciplines, HR and parking. But today, we're going to hear staff updates from Incline from Director Matthew Higgins, safety and training from our Chief Safety Officer, Mark Logan, who's really brand new. He's only 8 weeks in here. And then our Communications and External Relations Director, Brandon Meredith. So we'll start off with Director Matthews, if you'd like to come to the table, please. You want an applause?
Watching the feed.
Yes, there are just a few slides up on the screen.
I need a mirror here, I think.
It's just the arrow to the right. Alrighty. Other buttons turn it off, so be careful.
Okay, let's turn it off. Alrighty, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chairman Denison, Carter board members, the Carter team, and the public. I'd like to start off my presentation with a little bit of an update of our lower station. We are actually working on an ADA restroom for the lower station. It is over 65% completed, and the completion date is around May 1st, weather permitting. And our incline recovery for our track work, stage 1 of the track work, which is the demo work. As you can see there in the top left portion, that is all of the burnt timbers that was taken off of our track. They set up a tugger, which is more or less just a high-powered winch with a cart that they utilize. They put it on the track, they cut it up in pieces and sections that are manageable, and then they would bring this buggy to the top of the track. They would put it in a hopper. A forklift would take it, or shall I say a bobcat would take it down the street to these dumpsters. And then the dumpsters would be taken to the proper place to be destroyed. We just finished up with a demolition of all of our track. Our next stage is our footings, which is stage 2. And the footings are the picture there to the right. They're the concrete footings, that's where our track actually sits on top of. So from the fire, they're having to clean these footers up. They're going to pressure wash and chip away all of the bad concrete that actually got to, with the heat, with the intensity of the heat, the concrete started to flake. So all that has to be cleaned up. Once they get all of the footers cleaned, we will apply an epoxy to these footers. So therefore, no water will seep inside, and then when the weather changes, it'll freeze and it'll start busting the footers open. So after that work is completed, then we will start more or less laying track. Last week, my team and I offloaded 205 cross ties off of a truck last week and stacked them down at our bus facility. Our bus barn that we have a facility to keep a spare bus at the top of the mountain, just in case if something happens to the incline. So that's what we call our bus barn area. And we're looking for 288 more timbers to come, which consist of our stringers and our guardrail timber. And I guess you can see that they're coming out of Louisiana. And these timbers here were made out of solid oak. They have to be pressure treated with a chemical called creosote. So they boil these timbers in this creosote so that they come pre-treated to us.
So I heard you say that the burnt ones are gonna be destroyed.
They will be taken to a facility and be disposed of properly.
Since I know that I come from a country that use these old things still today, making furniture out of them is a popular activity. Was it something we ever considered?
Oh,
No?
No, not with these timbers here. They're soaked in creosote. That chemical will actually irritate the body.
Sounds like the perfect.
It will, get in your skin
Yeah.
and it'll set you on fire. It
Exactly.
burns, it'll burn, especially when that stuff is fresh.
So make sure you destroy it.
It is, we promise it will be destroyed. All righty, a few things that I am working on. We are trying to, I have been talking with vendors, excuse me, vendors to actually cool the incline cars. We've actually been talking to 2 different vendors. One to come up with a solution to put some type of an AC unit on our incline cars. And the other vendor is a vendor that will attach a sunshade to the roof of the cars that will stay with the cars while the cars are ascending and descending down the mountain. The next thing I am working on is we are trying to get in a dry pipe system. So heaven forbid this ever happens again, we will be prepared, which this dry pipe system will go from the top all the way down past our high trestle. So we're thinking that we may want to incorporate foam, but that will be something that we will have to discuss with the National Park Service. Because our last fire, we had to get permission from the Park Service to use this foam. So, but there is biodegradable foam out there nowadays, so that will be something that I am going to present to the National Park Service.
It would seem like a no-brainer, because the alternative to not having a proper fire mitigation is the things is better.
Exactly. So we just have water, the only thing we can do is just saturate the area with the water, but if we can use the foam, that would be a big deal.
All right. If you need help with that, let us know.
I sure will. And I'm also working with the fire department to do our yearly exercise. I'd like to invite everyone here on the board to attend our exercise, which will be November 19th at 8 a.m. And we will send that out in an email or an invite. I am also working with the Chattanooga Fire Department to get my team more or less trained on forestry fighting. So therefore, if we, heaven forbid this to ever happen again, they will have the training to go down and do the fire breaks or whatever. So the Chattanooga Fire Department is getting the National Forestry to come out and train them. So that way they can be well adapted to fighting forestry fires. So once they get, the Chattanooga Fire Department gets their training done, they're going to train my team to do the same type of training that they received from the National Forestry System.
And are the Fox people all on board with it?
Yes, I have been working closely with Chief Millsap with the National Park Service, and he's willing to work with us however we need him. And this is just something off the cup here of what I have been working on, or what I will be working on. Look, excuse me. Well, right now, let's see here. I am trying to get we have some work. We have an inspection from CSR, which is our engineering firm. And we have some work that will be done that we need to have done in 2026. So I'm trying to work with them and everyone to get this work done now while we're shut down, to be proactive. So that way we don't have to shut down in 2026. It'll be 2027 when we need to do our next shutdown. So I am working diligently with CSR and Mr. Fraser and Annie to try and get everything required.
Are there any difficulties? It seems such a no-brainer.
It is, some of the timber that we would need for this repair work is not readily accessible. So therefore, it's some pretty good sized timber, and that's not a lot of it just sitting on a shelf.
Please don't tell me it comes from Canada.
No, no, it will have to be, the timber would have to be more or less go up to the forest and be cut, done, and then more or less treated with the creosote and then brought to us. So it's gonna be a long process. But we do the Railworks, which is the company that's working on our track now. They will have a crew available in 3 weeks that's finishing up another job to be able to do this, and we can get the timbers acquired.
Well, good luck.
Jennifer Higgins, hi.
Yes.
Thank you for putting all this together. Very impressed how you're like increasing resilience in the team. I was wondering, just to put something else or think about, or maybe you did already, it's any way to include like the business community around in some of the trainings, or
Mhm.
connect with like the associations at the top and at the bottom. I don't know if it's a training or at least like if it happens again.
We could do probably some type of awareness training with the businesses down at the lower station. And we can actually incorporate or bring in the fire department and say, okay, if this, heaven forbid, ever happens again, this is what y'all need to prepare for.
Yeah, that would be. Very, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can incorporate that in our annual training to do that with the businesses. And also, I am getting ready to do some classes with RWP, which is Roadway Worker Protection. I have a class scheduled for the next couple of weeks. Last year, I wrote a plan for our team, and I had to train all of our contractors. I also had to train TDOT on our roadway worker protection. This is something that the FTA has put out. When they first put it out, they didn't give us any type of guidance. So now they have come out with different guidelines. So now the plan that was written last year has to be rewritten again this year, and you have to go with their guidelines. You're not kicking me on the table yet, my 5 minutes, okay?
Peter here.
All right. And another thing we're working with, Brookville is to come out with, they will have to come out and safety certify every aspect of the incline cars. We will have to, they're going to check the wheels on the car for wheel runoff. they're going to take the safety governors off the cars, take them back to their shop and make sure that they're calibrated properly. So therefore, like I said, every aspect of the cars have to be taken and inspected and recertified.
How frequently do we need to do that?
Usually every year we have our wheels are checked for wheel runoff. That's an FTA rule. We have this special tool that our engineering firm comes out and they actually gauge our wheels to make sure that we don't have wheel runoff. And as far as underneath the carriage of the cars, they're checked annually. But as far as the magnitude of what we're doing now is a little bit different than what we normally do. We're checking for cracks, whatever, because when we had the fire, the cars actually, they have to get up to a certain speed before the governors were actually applied to stop the cars. So they got up to that speed, the governors did what they were supposed to do, and they stopped the cars. So with a test like that magnitude of force, we want to make sure that we don't have any type of cracks or what have you in any of our essential components.
Makes sense.
And our last but not least, I am trying to get prepared for this unorthodox cable change that we're having. Usually in a perfect world of a cable change, we stage our cars in certain areas, so therefore we know without a shadow of a doubt, okay, we've set this one here, this one has been set in this position. Since the fire, the cars rode 18 feet before the brake actually applied. Another one went another 20 some odd feet and before the brake actually stopped that car. So normally the cars are stationed at the top of the mountain and at the lower. Now we're in the middle of the track. So that poses somewhat of a little bit of difficulty with trying to put new cable on the track. But I have more or less sat down and brainstormed and we've had to get some extra things together. So therefore we can make sure that the cars and the cable will go back like it should go back. And like I said, we only get one shot. Anytime you're working with this cable, you only get one shot of doing it right. You do it wrong, you're having to acquire a new cable, which is $85,000.
Please do it right.
And we will do it right. And that's the same way when we're cutting. We only get one shot in making sure when we take measurements, I measure 4 or 5 times to make sure. Because if not, we're gonna have to build a platform to get the cars or start loading passengers. That concludes my presentation. Is there any questions from anyone?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent job.
Thank you.
Director.
Thank you.
I look forward to
And board,
experiencing and confirming everything has been working order.
We will make sure that you're the first one to.
Exactly.
All right.
and board members, just a note from my office real quick. It's been a pleasure to work with Director Higgins. He's obviously our resident expert and I'm real thankful that he's on the team. I'm learning a lot from him, but I think we should all be very thankful that he's here with us. And now we have our Chief Safety Officer, Mr. Logan.
Good morning, Chair Denison, Mr. Frazier, Board and Public. My name is Mark Logan. I'm the Chief Safety Officer and therefore tasked with oversight for all things safety, training, and compliance here at Carter. So for the next few minutes, we will endeavor to speak briefly about these 3 disciplines. So, as Mr. Frazier mentioned, in my brief tenure here at Carter, which is less than 2 months, I must say that I'm really super excited to be a part of the team. There's an old saying that if you're in a group full of rock stars, you're just honored to be part of the band. So I am honored. So speaking of rock stars, we're gonna go right to the Safety and Training Department. Those guys right there. And safety, that's job 1 of the Safety and Training Department's focus, according to our strategic imperative, which is to reduce incidents and accidents. So subsequently, we performed a full behavioral analysis of the 2024 incidents and accidents. And we identified cause codes, root cause, calculating proper metrics, and establishing defined goals. So I'm just gonna take a moment and drill down just a little bit on that. So for example, we determined that our preventable accident frequency rate for 2024 was 1.65. And I'm gonna put a little asterisk there, but 1.65. And we are currently at 1.48. This is for preventable collisions. And the industry standard is 1.5. Sounds great, right? But we are also mindful that
So you were saying we're doing better than the industry average?
we're doing better than the industry average right now. However, this is our slow season based on our history of accidents. This is our slow season and they begin to tick up as the weather warms. And actually, based on last year's measurements, September is our worst month. 20% of all preventable collisions happened in September alone. So that means we have the opportunity with this information, with this analysis, we're able to prepare. And we prepare with things like safety touch points, safety meetings, safety blitzes, things of that nature, so that we could constantly get this information into the psyche of the operator so that we are prepared for the storm that we basically know is coming. So,
So I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm fascinated with this. You can knock me over the feather. What is so extraordinary about September that 20% of all our preventables happen in 1 month?
that is a really good question. And I'm glad you asked, because actually September is, for the industry, it is a challenging month because that's when school goes back in, right? Because we had the summer slow of the traffic. Now students are back out there, the school buses are back out there, so traffic has increased. Also, we have a change in seasons. Those weather changes actually have a chemical reaction to our body, because we're talking about, it changes our hormones, it changes our moods. So there actually are physiological aspects of that change in season, as far as just getting less vitamin D from the sun. And then additionally, we're talking about September, we're going into the holiday season. So now you're considering things like seasonal depression. So we're talking about the things that are actually happening in those, what we call those 6 inches between our ears. So when we're talking about training the operator, we're not just talking about training them in their ability to maneuver the vehicle, but we got to look at it holistically, because we're training old people. And the more we understand what's going on with individuals mentally, the better opportunity we have to meet them where we are and guide them to where we need them to be. So it's a holistic approach. So thank you for bringing that up. And we're gonna move on to training, because that's pretty much where we left off. This is Fraser Avenue. We actually had an opportunity to coordinate with Chattanooga's Transportation Planning Division to get out and do an investigation of Fraser Avenue. Fraser Avenue should be on everyone's radar right now. I see some. Okay, great. Fraser Avenue. Yes, so we actually got out there and we was able to do a coordinated investigation, collaboration. And the thing about site investigations, when it comes to training, this is actually ground one for opportunities, because although we may be instructing in, okay, this is what's going on here, and this is some new information of what we want to address now, but this is also an opportunity to smuggle in some things that maybe folks already know, but we get an opportunity to give them a reminder that, you know, while we're dealing with this, let's also be mindful of that. So it's a good opportunity, but the safety and training department itself, what we actually did, we took sort of a deep dive into our training department and an audit of the training content and delivery, discovering that opportunities existed, of course, and how to best coordinate its delivery. So moving forward, we are planning to implement a complete comprehensive training program that is the gold standard in public transit agencies. Now, I've used this system before personally, and I am convinced that over time, this will have a great impact on our safety culture. And it's something that I'm really, really excited and looking forward to, and you will over time see the results. It's a very effective program. And I'm just gonna move on to the next slide. Compliance. So we are coordinating with the State Safety Oversight Agency to ensure compliance while strengthening those working relationships that I am personally developing with our SSO. And we are happy to report that we are on schedule with our self-certification process at the incline that Director Higgins was speaking about, known as the Safety and Security Certification Plan. And for an example, that cable that's being delivered, and that is Mr. Higgins and Director Higgins in the picture right there. So that cable also had to be, that's an example, it had to be certified and become part of our plan to be presented to the state. And we are refining our ASP, our agency safety plan, which you are very familiar with, in coordination with the SSO, and reviewing our SOPs for continuous improvement, which is actually a part of our plan. So we're continuing to look for opportunities to increase system safety. And with that said, this concludes the summary of the three major buckets containing all that is safety. But I would like to add just a little perspective. Clearly, we are not where we want to be. And there are some opportunities for improvement. But the good news is that we are already on the road towards excellence. I've been in this industry on the private side for over 16 years. Some might say I've seen it all. But I tell you this earnestly. Today, at Carter, we have everything we need to turn this boat around and set sail toward industry-leading achievements. I mean, legacy achievements. Under the very capable leadership of Charles Frazier and the direction in which we're heading, right here and right now, and it's the only place that I want to be. So I am again reiterating that I am extremely excited to be part of this team. And I just have positive expectancy about where we're going. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was very informative. And so what I'm hearing you say is that to really improve safety, we need to suspend all service for the month of September.
Well, we can't do that. The wheels must roll, but we definitely have the opportunity to really engage with the operators and just awareness. I really feel that awareness is one of the keys.
Well, it's the first step to beginning to address the problem. If
Absolutely,
you're not aware of the problem, then it won't go away.
absolutely. I agree.
Well done.
Chair Denison. Thank you.
And if I may, Chair Denison, thank you. You started to hear some of those metrics, like actual data-driven decisions. And so the team is getting much more organized, bringing the right professionals to the table. And in the not too distant future, the board will have these data metrics that you can be presented every single month and actually see data trends. We want to drive incidents down. We want to increase satisfaction, increase on-time performance. So those things are coming slowly but surely. We're headed in that direction. Turn it over to our next speaker.
Well, it's a hard act to follow. Thank you for that. So good morning, Chair Denison, Mr. Frazier, Board, and the public. I'm pleased to update you on our recent communications activities supporting our marketing and communication strategic goals. So for the last 5 months, we focused on boosting our social media presence through more engaging content and consistent posting. And I'm happy to report that this simple tactic has enabled us to boost our social media by 15%. Looking ahead, we're targeting even higher growth in the coming quarters by highlighting the incline recovery updates and the new North Shore Express shuttle. So we've recently expanded our external communications toolbox with CARTA's first CEO report, a draft of the new overview brochure, and continued production of our windshield and transit tour documents. As you can see in the photos, we've also completed the token transit advertising program and have installed new graphics, both in English and Spanish, on the inside and outside of all of our fixed route buses. Community outreach remains strong within CARTA. The new Dolly Bus partnership with Signal Centers has been tremendous for promoting CARTA and the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. We've committed to featuring the Dolly Bus at one event a month in 2025 to help boost DPIL registrations. Our latest outreach was at the Lit Brunch at Coolidge Park, and I was there and can say that was a huge success. Obviously, the Dolly Bus was the main attraction, and it was just really fun seeing the kids getting the free stickers and just actually walking around a bus. Who would have figured that kids just like to sit in a bus? They do. They loved it. So, and just to give you a date, our next outreach event will be a transit tour with the staff at Girls Inc., and that will take place on March the 28th. As we know, last Sunday, the Walnut Street Bridge closed for 18 months, and Carter recognized the need to act swiftly and help those affected by the economic impact. In response, we're offering a free express shuttle connecting downtown to the North Shore. And so the comms team has been working full speed ahead towards promoting both our free shuttles and our first hour free parking available in both north and south locations. To help promote our services, the marketing efforts will include a dedicated landing page on the CARTA website with maps and schedules, a new trifold brochure distributed to the North Shore businesses, street side shuttle parking signs promoting our first hour free. We'll also have new shuttle stop signs with QR code to watch real-time shuttle activity. We've made posters with maps to hang in our shuttle park garages, and we also, for future plans, include creating multiple size signs, some up to 7 feet wide, to place in both parking garages to help advertise our services. So on that same note, I would now like to introduce you to our new North Shore Express shuttle operator, also known as our Chief Marketing Officer, Mr. Jose Suezo. Jose is an extremely friendly and outgoing employee who will be operating the shuttle from Thursday through Sunday. So we had the privilege of spending some time with Jose yesterday and happened to give him a tour of the Merchants on Fraser Avenue. After speaking with Jose, he said he's super excited to start his new route because he says he just really enjoys talking to all the friendly people. We did learn the other day that our first day with the Express Shuttle attracted 65 riders, and I firmly believe that after people meet Jose, that number will triple. This past Tuesday, we had a fun day celebrating the National Transit Employee Appreciation Day. So the communications team and HR teams assembled 250 goodie bags with card advisors, candy, and a personalized note from Mr. Fraser thanking our employees for their important community service and valued commitment to CARTA. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just a comment, I was very impressed by the packet that y'all did, the CEO packet that we did up here. I think it was a good way to show all the work in a clean format that's been done. Previously, we just couldn't find that, and you weren't able to have something that you can refer back to.
Right.
And also something that was in a format that we can share. So I would love to see that every year going forward. So that we have something that's more of a presentable to say, here's what we have done. And it's clear, it's in black and white,
Right.
the presentation, publishing, all of that was really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another question, who's the audience for the marketing campaign? Like, it's like all Chattanooga, or are we trying to center in some communities?
The question was, who's the audience for the marketing efforts?
Yeah,
I would say the answer to that would be all Chattanoogans. Everybody. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna second Ozzy's comment yet again, because I think I've said it 3 times, but she's right. So thank you for that. All right, thank you very much. I like that too. It was very informative to have the team come and tell us a bit more about what's going on in the areas of responsibility.
Yeah, I have to say, board members, we don't, on the day to day, like we have quite a bit of, lots going on, it can be stressful, but I find a lot of my inspiration recently, like in the team themselves, like they're everyone's very professional, they want to make a difference, and so we're getting organized and it feels good.
So, who knew about September?
Your chief safety officer.
All right, our next item is the consent agenda. The information for the consent agenda has been distributed. Primarily today, our statistical report, due to the recent changes in finance department, we will be delaying the distribution of the finance update until a later date. Are there any questions or comments on the statistical report?
I just wanted to comment on the new graphics on the statistical report. I think that they are very, very great, and I love the inclusion of the caravan graphics. And I hope that in the future, we'll get a graphic for Carter Go's on-time performance and things of that nature as well, but just want to highlight these new graphics. Thanks, for
Yeah, I second that. It's easier for us to kind of drill in and see kind of what's going on here. And again, just having a cleaner format and pulling out some of those numbers on here was good for me to kind, and then I could go a little bit deeper where needed. So thank you.
Pictures always better.
I think we're visual.
And if I may, Chair Denison, thank you, board members, for that feedback. You will be getting, that's something, we're working on it now. There will be a operations report that gives you everything in one place. Ridership, on-time performance, incidents, accidents, everything. And one takeaway from this particular report, we've struggled with data, but I would like you to notice on page 19 of your packet that on-time performance on the fixed route side of the world, if you look and compare February 24 to February 25, that's a 16% increase in on-time performance, and that's directly impacting our riders, like the quality of the service. And so with that type of data, we'll really be able to manage the system much better. Without knowing that, you don't have a North Pole to like, we got to improve this. So this is under development, and thank you for your feedback on that.
Yes, good progress. Thank you. Any other comments? Is there a motion to support accepting the statistical report as presented? We'll all shout at once.
Sure.
Second,
One second.
all right, we accept the statistical report as presented and distributed. Action items. Now we need to go to discussion. There is any, please.
Where's Annie?
We'll start with the purchasing policy. Good morning, Chairman Denison, Board of Directors, current colleagues, Mr. Fraser and the public. Staff is recommending that the board approve the purchasing policy, which begins on page 23 of your packet. It's typical for there to be changes to the purchasing policy on an ongoing basis, particularly when there are changes to federal, state, or local requirements. The board last approved Carta's purchasing policy at the February 2024 board meeting. Since that time, Carta has received the procurement audit report from the Chattanooga Office of Internal Audit and has been gradually updating processes and procedures as part of our audit response, which you've seen in the past months. Approving the updated purchasing policy will formalize all of those changes. In addition, in January, the Federal Transit Administration released an updated circular for third-party contract and guidance. The purchasing policy includes changes from both of these updates, and there have also been updates to recent organizational changes within Carta. Included in your packet are only the pages that have associated changes, which are highlighted. A complete copy of the purchasing policy is also available on the Carta's website, listed as a draft pending approval at today's board meeting. Included in my memo, I've outlined the recommendations from the Chattanooga Office of Internal Audit, and I tried to include the associated recommendation with the page number of the change. I'll give a couple of examples of changes based on the procurement audit report and changes made to the FTA circular, but if anyone wants to go over any other ones, feel free to ask. Some examples of changes due to the procurement audit, which I'm sure you're all kind of aware of at this point, is including reporting sole source and emergency procurements to the board, which the board is now used to receiving. There are also updates to contract administration procedures to ensure that those signing on about invoices have access to contracts to confirm pricing before approving an invoice to pay. Examples of changes associated with the FTA circular update include a requirement to complete a self-certification process for its micro purchase limit, which is currently set at $10,000 or less by CARTA, and updates to revenue contract procedures. Once the board approves the purchasing policy, training will be scheduled for staff to go over the new changes. In summary, staff is requesting the board approve CARTA's updated purchasing policy. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I would perhaps just like comment that I am also in receipt of an email from Mr. Stan Sewell from City Auditor's office, where he expresses his appreciation to Mr. Fraser and the Carter team for the cooperation and the excellent working relationship, which I would have to say is a marked change from where we were 2 years ago. So that is very positive development. And I think this is the basis on which we can build continuing collaboration for the future. So well done to that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Right. Then Bruce. I would ask, do we have a motion to support?
Make a motion.
Second? So done, thank you. All right, good about that. Thank you for reminding me. Everybody's in favor, right? Thank you.
The next area I'll be covering is our procurement report for the month of March. This month, I'm bringing reports to sections A and B, board approval of new procurements over 50,000, and board approval of the use of the request for proposals process. For section A, staff is requesting approval of a 5-year agreement with CSR Engineering not to exceed $250,000. Director Higgins gave you an update and mentioned CSR for our incline engineering services. Generally speaking, the scope of the service they provide includes inspections of the track, trestles, buried trestles, guard timbers, ties, roadbed, switch points, retaining walls, and adjacent rock faces at the incline. They also assist in developing specifications and associated drawings for repair work, as well as inspection of repairs once completed. This procurement was completed through a request for proposals for a professional services procurement method, also known as the Brooks Act for federal procurements. This method requires that CARTA evaluate proposals with criteria that do not include price. Pricing is evaluated for reasonableness once consultants are chosen through the evaluation process. The request for proposals was released on January 24th, 2025, was advertised in the Chattanooga Times Free Press, and the RFP was also included on CARTA's website. CARTA sent the RFP to 2 interested firms and also provided to the Builders Exchange of Tennessee and Deltec Public Records, a government contracting site. Only 1 proposal was received from CSR Engineering. This was also the case the last time these services were procured, and we believe that the unique nature of the incline rail most likely prompted other firms not to submit a proposal. CSR Engineering has worked for CARTA for many years. Their proposal demonstrated the qualifications, experience, and sufficient staff for their work outlined in the RFP. CARTA has had direct experience with their past record of work related to inspections and preparing the bid documents. Hourly rates were evaluated for reasonableness. The top hourly rate for 25-26 is $150 per hour for the principal engineer. This is consistent with existing pricing that they've provided to us in the past and is less in comparison to the architectural engineering price proposals that were received recently for the planning services contract. The top hourly rate for a similar position was $325 per hour for an engineering 2. As hourly rates are lower than CARTA has received for similar positions, CARTA considers their pricing to be fair and reasonable. CARTA has budgeted approximately $40,000 for these services in the capital budget, which we'll see later. Before I go to item B, I wanted to see if there were any questions related.
So I've asked all my questions during the committee stage, so there are none from me, but not all the board members may have participated in that discussion. So are there any questions, observations?
Observation is that CSR is a tremendous bargain. They have a tremendous amount of knowledge of the incline and no other firm can compare.
And I'm assuming you're not on the board of directors, Bill?
No, CSR. But I've been around those people for a number of years, so.
Okay.
We're lucky to have them. And that's all I'm gonna say about that.
I'm certainly also satisfied, based on the answers and responses I've got to my questions, that this represents very fair value. So I'm good.
Sorry, I'll go ahead. Staff is also requesting approval for the use of the request for proposals process for the following procurements. The current scope of work for these procurements requires that evaluation criteria other than price be considered when awarding contracts for these services. And those are on-site collection services for drug and alcohol testing, on-site DOT physicals, graphic design and typesetting, and security guard services. To summarize, staff is recommending the board approve a 5-year contract with CSR Engineering not to exceed $250,000 and for the approval of utilizing the RFP process for the procurements previously outlined. This concludes my report, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Board members, any questions?
No questions. Thank you again for all the work that went into this. I know all of this was detailed and I appreciate you making sure that we set up the success and everything is included. So thank you.
It is actually to that point. You know, it gets presented here very succinctly, focused on the key aspects, like the mountain of works, like the iceberg that brought us here, and the interrogation too that takes place along the way. It's probably not that apparent if one is not aware of it. So I add my own voice of appreciation as well. Very professional and very thorough. With that, is there a motion to support this request? We have a
Motion to
motion,
approve.
second.
Thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Accepted. Thank you very much. Budget presentation. Is that right?
That's right. All right, good morning, Chair Denison, good morning, Board of Directors. It's good to have you all here. We've had already a busy meeting and now we're gonna get into the meat of the discussion. We did, just to make things a little bit easier for the board members, you have a handout, a second handout that puts all of this information. It's the same information that's in the board pack, but some of them are printed on 11/17, so you can see it. But we'll be referring to this document. Let me start off with just a handful of comments to kind of set the stage for you a little bit. First of all, in my experience, budgets reflect priorities. And so I want to thank you all very much for setting our priorities last month. And that's the first document that's in your handout, which is the board last month approved our fiscal year 26 budget priorities. Those are the 4 strategic areas and the 5 key commitments that we talked about last month. And in a minute, we're going to present to you the budget in that format. So we're going to go back to we're going to do it in the format of the priorities that you gave us. So thank you for doing that. Number 2, a reminder that this is the preliminary budget, preliminary. Many things can and will change between now and June when we bring you the final budget for the year. For example, we've made some assumptions about health insurance costs. We made some assumptions about liability insurance. We have included in here information about modifying some of our fares. And all of those things will take additional processes and work. And we're going to go through that today with you. But just again, this is preliminary. And then third and finally, I just thank you in advance for 2 things. Number 1, actively listening while we tell you the story of where we are in this journey together, and then your patience if some of the information seems repetitive. So we're gonna say things a couple times just to make sure that everybody gets it. And so with that, I would draw your attention, to this diagram, which is also in one of your handouts. So this is the presentation document. Let me orient you to what this is. This is the One Chattanooga Public Transit Timeline. And so across the top here are fiscal years. This is a 10-year span. It goes back to fiscal year 20, which is actually 2019, all the way to fiscal year 30 across the top. And along the left-hand side, we've got 3 swim lanes. And so the first swim lane is going to describe, and I'm going to describe for you who and what. I'm going to describe for you like what the mayor's done, what the board has done, what I've done. The next swim lane in the middle are key focus areas. And there's really 3 things I want you to be aware of as we talk about this today. Number 1 is fixing our core business. We can't build until we kind of get the foundation set. Secondly, what is our comprehensive mobility plan, our strategic plan, what we're building for in the future, and I'm going to talk about that. And then thirdly, the fiscal cliff that we talked about last year. There's 2 things we have to be aware of. So those 3 things are all important and they're in play. And then third and finally, the local operating budget requests to the city and county are moving a long time here. And so we put all these things in one place so that we can have a discussion. And what I'm trying to do for all of us is orient us where we are in space and time. And so this line in the middle, the yellow line, is today. But I say this to let you know that there's some history as well, right? So here in 2023, Mayor Kelly took action. He had a bold new vision for mobility in this community. And he took action by overhauling this board and seated 8 new positions. And board members, you then in turn found a CEO. You found me and brought me to this community. And so those things took place 2 years ago. Last year, in my first several months, came up with and identified our SWOT analysis. What's the corrective action plan? What are the things that we need to keep our eyes on last year? And those things were just below that line, fixing the foundation and starting to build that strategic plan. Where are we going in the future? What does this look like in the future? And where we are today and what we're going to ask you to approve are the budgets, the priorities for this next year. We're headed into the 3rd year, which is going to be continuing to fix the foundation of our organization. It'll be the completion of our strategic plan. That work is underway with the RPA. I'll give you a reminder of what that looks like. And then we also need to deal with the fiscal cliff. It'll come at us in 2 swipes, this year and next year. And I'm going to explain that to you now. But let me just drill down on 2 things on this slide before I move on and kind of tell the story again in a different way. The comprehensive mobility plan in the center there. What you need to know is since 2017, CARTA has had different professional organizations looking at our transit system. Jarrett Walker came here in 2017. He came here again in 2020. The city hired VIA in 2022 to do a complete assessment of where microtransit might work. And we asked then Jarrett Walker to come back again. So there's been a lot of eyes on this. There is no need to create a new plan. What we're doing is, and Kimley Horn is the group that's doing it in conjunction with the RPA, they're taking all of those plans, the work's been done, they're updating it with all of our ridership now, and they are going to complete this work in the next 6 to 8 months. And that is what's going to tell not only us, but the city council and this community, how much budget we will need in the outer years, 27, 28, 29. So once the plan's completed, we know, then we need to plan on implementing. So we'll know how much money we need to do so. We don't know that today, okay? So I say all that to let you know, here's where we are. Here's the background. Jarrett Walker, said it best. He came back and told city officials in this community in 2023 that CARTA is a legacy of low expectations and low investment. This was in the Times Free Press, that year. And what he was talking about is that we were poorly funded. We had low frequency on our routes, high wait times for the buses, and we weren't really set up for great coverage throughout the community or for high ridership. And what that really means is the state of our authority really has kind of three things that you should be aware of. We are dealing with chronic underfunding, and the way that shows up is my predecessor, your predecessor board members, your predecessors didn't have enough money. And so when they were solving problems and implementing solutions, almost every time we took the cheapest solution versus the optimal solution, the least expensive route. Similarly, over time, as budgets got tighter, we went through and started reducing service. We eliminated routes that were providing service. We cut back on frequency, and the ridership shows that, the loss of ridership over time. Number two, state of authority, lack of proficiency. I'm talking about staff members. We haven't properly invested in training and development of our staff members or recruiting people that have the right knowledge to do this work. Just as an example, when our chief safety officer came today, and he's got that history, the industry experience, the actual data and numbers we should be looking at. That's the type of stuff that our staff needs to really understand, and we need to do that through development. We're missing policies and procedures that many modern transit agencies have. We don't have them yet. So this is a proficiency issue. And then, if I may, board members, from your point of view, and it being new to the board with Director Sander having the longest experience, I think the board has oversight challenges in that unreliable data. And I think when you first came to the board, you even had challenges getting data. And that's because we have lack of technology integration to get the information that you need to make decisions. And so this is kind of the state of the authority that we're dealing with, okay? Fortunately, Mayor Kelly's bold new vision for mobility is defined in the One Chattanooga plan. There is a mandate to properly fund public transit. It's in the plan. And the mayor has already taken action in the Times Free Press on February 18th, 2023. Chattanooga mayor overhauls the makeup of the CARTA Authority Board. So 8 new members, Chair Denison was elected by the board, and then the board, you subsequently brought me and appointed me to the table, and I appreciate this tremendous responsibility. I want to orient you to where we were last year at the March meeting. Last year at this meeting, staff came and proposed a $2.5 million increase above our prior years for the purpose of fixing the foundation. That was at this preliminary budget. Where we ended up in June, unfortunately, Hamilton County disinvested their piece of it. The city did give us an investment of $500,000, but the net was a $394,000 increase in local operating revenue, which was far from the 2.5 million that we had asked for. And so I just want to give you that calibration about where we are. And so I was quoted, I don't know if you remember this, in June of last year, Times Free Press quoted me, and I said that the lack of funding, we didn't get the funding we needed, is going to impact the speed at which we do things, but not going to impact the need to do so. So just because we didn't get the money to fix the foundation, doesn't mean we need to fix doesn't mean we don't need to fix the foundation. We must still. With that in mind, just a reminder, this is where we are today. We are going to present to you the budget at this point. The 2 driving factors that are increasing our budget this year are the continuation of the need to fix the foundation and the first of 2 hits of the fiscal cliff. And so that's those pieces on this diagram here. And so as we go into this, I'm going to turn this over now to Scott and Annie, who are going to walk you through the presentation. I think I would echo Chair Denison during the presentation. Please ask questions along the way. Then we will ask, when we go through all these, we answer any questions, we will ask you then to approve the preliminary budgets. And so the key driving factors, again, we still need to address the core business needs, and we need to address the fact that ARPA funding is coming to an end. Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Scott to start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. I'm pleased to present our preliminary budget framework for fiscal year 26, noting again the word preliminary, because this discussion is based on a fully funded budget request. Any shortfall in the amounts granted would necessitate a reconfiguration of the budget. And this budget reflects our commitment to CARTA's mission of providing essential transit services while addressing physical challenges responsibly. As you know, last month, we developed the 5 key commitments that guide our approach to this budget cycle. The first commitment, maintaining current service levels. It's really quite simple. Our first and foundational commitment is to maintain all current service levels without reductions. We're making headway in our efforts to revitalize CARTA, and now is not the time to go backwards from our already pared back service. Maintaining these levels allows us to focus on improving the rider experience despite equipment challenges and infrastructure limitations. Secondly, we have been in the past year exploring regional partnerships. Yeah, in your packet, you'll see this. It's almost pointless on the screen, but what it represents is the menu of options after meeting with the county in order to rebuild a relationship with the county. These are the options that we presented to them, whether they are fully funded or partially. I couldn't say at this point, but we have developed a productive relationship with the county mayor, his staff, and we've also met with many county commissioners and the leaders of Red Bank and East Ridge. For instance, a key initiative in this that was important to the county mayor was the Opportunity High transportation pilot that you'll see proposed in there. We also have proposed several caravan paratransit subsidies to make these partnerships in cities outside of Chattanooga work for everyone involved. And these partnerships, they represent a very strategic approach to regional mobility that will put the area and regional back in CARTA for everyone involved, which obviously the Chattanooga mayor also encouraged. 3, the commitment to the strategic management of ARPA funds. We will be utilizing, just to be clear, the American Rescue Plan Act. It provided us critical support during the COVID-19 crisis, as it was intended to. These funds are naturally sunsetting. We will utilize $974,000 in ARPA funds in fiscal year 26. And with the balance, we will establish a contingency fund to protect CARTA operations and our employees. This approach provides responsible transition from this federal relief funding while preventing fiscal cliff in this budget year. Fourthly, there will be our 4th commitment. There will be some fair policy adjustments. We're proposing targeted adjustments to certain fares and policies to balance our budget responsibly. Importantly, we are not changing our fixed route rates because this impacts our broadest rider base. And remember that any changes to the requested budget would necessitate revisiting these adjustments. And of course, any proposed change that you approve will undergo a Title VI analysis in accordance with FTA guidelines to ensure equity. I think you can see here, I don't know if you have specific questions on these rates, but they're incremental. And in Caravan, you can see it's establishing a tiered system, those that are ADA compliant versus the city of Chattanooga, which is heavily subsidized. And this service that does exist in East Ridge and Red Bank, making that service work for everyone, including CARTA. And fifth, we will continue our aggressive grant pursuit. And this is something Annie could address better, but these grants help maximize local investment impact, and our grant strategy leverages local matching funds to multiply their effect many times over. The grant opportunities include vehicle replacement, facility improvements, tech upgrades, and service enhancements. And Andy does a really great job maximizing external funding because it's critical to address our aging fleet and our infrastructure needs. This budget framework in closing represents a balanced approach to
Could you
meeting
remind
our.
us, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Could you remind us how old our fleet is?
Well, it obviously varies. I know for a fact that I was involved in the implementation of the shuttles in 1992. When I worked in the private sector, those buses are still on the road and they're held together with gaffer tape and hope. We do have, you see some of our modern wraps, they are battery electric. I don't know, can you address the age of the average
Yes.
diesel bus? I'm not.
We have the overwhelming majority, the board's aware of this, the overwhelming majority of our vehicles are past their useful life. There's a definition depending on the type of
service life.
vehicle. All of
The operating costs and
all of
maintenance.
the caravan vehicles, the Car2Go vehicles, minus there's 3 or 4 that are new, are past their useful life. It's more expensive to maintain. It's uncomfortable for the riders. The fixed route buses, especially the diesel ones, they're far past their useful life. This is just lack of, funding and planning to replace assets. But yes,
So I think the reason I asked this question, it's important. There's a punctuation mark here. There's a reason driving our budget requests and capital expenses. The longer we defer updating our vehicle fleet, exponentially, operating costs will increase. So then you have another budget demand elsewhere. It's not like you are saving money by not doing this, and we have been deferring year over year over year over year, and we are now where we are. Where the vehicle fleet is beyond its sell-by date.
if I may, I don't want to prolong the conversation, but I'll give you an example of what's happening right now. In my office, there is a requisition to purchase 2 $20,000 battery packs for 2 shuttles that are, they're not going to run anymore. That batteries are dead. And what you're faced with, and what our predecessors were faced with, was do we spend the less expensive, the $40,000 for the battery and get some more tape? Or do we strategize and come up with an aggressive capital plan to replace the vehicle in full? It's these types of things that I think that our predecessors were hamstrung by because of not enough funding, but we've got to change that narrative, right? So there's a lot of things past their useful life. Before we go on to the next slide, are there any questions here that we could flesh out?
Just on the incline. The increase. I still have concerns. I just don't want prices out of business. I know it's $3 increase, but still. Until we get our air operational, it's gonna be a struggle for the public. They're gonna pay the extra amount. I know, with what we're dealing with, the virus calls. There might be, some empathy from the public on that account, but I still struggle with it.
If I may, just give a couple thoughts on it, and thank you, Director Nye. There's a couple of approaches, and so again, I thank the board for giving us the priorities here. What we've presented is that CARTA is going to put a little skin in the game as it relates to balancing our budget. And so a handful of things, you'll see that we're looking at parking rates. Some get decreased, actually. Parking rates will end up ranging from $1 to $2 based on zones. Car2Go increases will adjust there. But that's not the end of the story. We'll also make some accommodations for riders that are multimodal, meaning if they use Car2Go and transfer to the bus, we'll incorporate maybe the bus trip is free thereafter. So again, we're in the preliminary parts of the budget. So I'm giving one example. With the increase for the incline, what I would let you know is in reaching out to our partners at Sea Rock City to do a scan of the environment. They really recommended not touching the youth ticket, which is still the case. And a minor adjustment for the adult with $3 that they felt fine about, especially because we have the library program where local families can check out Family Pass for the incline, giving access. We also have the season pass for folks. I acknowledge your concern and we will need to step carefully, but as the preliminary mark, we have included a small increase there, as you can see. But thank you for your comment.
Well, if I could just comment as well. You are, of course, totally right that any fare increase is really undesirable. On the other hand, looking at all of the budget realities, where the needs are what they are, we've gotten through only half of them. We as CARTA need to make sure that things within our control, we optimize, and those levers that we have to pull our revenues from incline, from fares on the fixed routes, Car2Go, all these things. Because we need to go to the city and county and ask them to make up the shortfall. And the first question that I think legitimately can be expected is, what have you done, CARTA, to control your own destiny and minimize that shortfall? And so we need to look very pragmatically at driving the revenue levers. And I think as we work through the plan as it gets presented, the team has had to make some very difficult trade-offs, but found an outcome where I think we are putting more pressure on revenue from sources that are better able to absorb, so that we can leave our core services and the fares that are associated with our fixed routes in particular for the majority of our users untouched. And there's no guarantee that we can continue to pursue this avenue forever. In addition to that, of course, the team is working on operational effectiveness and efficiency and cost reductions and all that stuff. So that we can go with credibility to ask for a sizable increase in the contribution from both city and the county.
I understand that, Chairman, but my concern is, it wasn't that long ago, we were at $15. And then we went to $20, then we go to 23. That's an $8 increase over a short period of time. That's my concern. And I'm just concerned about what the public's perception would be of that. That's where I'm coming from. Okay.
You are not wrong. But as I say, at the risk of repeating myself, it's a tough decision based on optimizing trade-offs. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I just want a point of privilege. I'm just gonna, since we're on fares, if I can just say a little bit. I want to acknowledge the people that worked on the budget. They definitely have been very, very communicative, and I appreciate this budget presentation. Since March of last year, the Caravan Advisory Council has met monthly to discuss various issues, including potential fare increases. And while the advisory council recognizes that fares haven't increased in some time, we also recognize how essential the caravan service is to our community's most precious and valued members. With that in mind, the majority of the advisory council supported a 50-cent one-way fare to help one-way fare increase to help sustain caravans' vital service and to also hopefully sustain the dedicated, good-hearted CARTA staff. Their passion is what makes this beloved service possible. So we did agree with that. But quickly, my thoughts, I understand that costs are rising everywhere, and I understand CARTA's financial state, I do. But with that being said, I'm also concerned for our faithful riders and the financial burden a significant fare may cause. A 50-cent fare increase, that may be challenging for some in and of itself. But if you look at this memo, 9D, in my opinion, anything beyond that, the range could be devastating for consistent and faithful riders who depend on these services daily for employment. They depend on these services daily for medical appointments, grocery shopping, maintaining their independence, and just enjoying our beautiful city. I mean, they depend on these services. Service is vital. So lastly, I promise, I understand that today's vote is just the beginning of the process, as this is the preliminary budget. And I also understand that Title VI is going to require us to get information from our community. And I personally look forward to hearing from our faithful riders. I plan to attend those meetings. And I also hope to see many people who will be affected by these increases there and the people who advocate for them. I feel their voices are needed for making thoughtful, yet necessary, Mr. Chair, and compassionate change. So I just wanted to put that out there because the range is very concerning to me. Whether you are ADA or not, I know we're gonna have lots of conversations from this point forward.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Any other
thank you.
comments?
Just real quick, I want to thank both of you all for acknowledging what increases to fare means, whether it's someone who is depending on service or someone who is using the service from a leisure perspective. So I don't want to overlook that, and I appreciate you all both taking time to express that today.
I think we should acknowledge the validity of your very astute observations. I have a great deal of empathy personally with what you've expressed. At the same time, I think we are grappling with this tremendous challenge in the delta between the operating cost of our various services and the revenues generated. If one is a hard-nosed, unempathetic, black and white numbers person, which thank goodness is not a description I would apply to CARTA leadership, then it would leap off the page the great delta we have in cost of operating versus the fare cost. And we have to also find a way to legitimize our recommended fares policy versus the very substantial ask we are making of key stakeholders in terms of providing those funds. And I think that in demonstrating again credibility and the ability to optimize the trade-offs, the recommendations that the team has come up with to really try, and I think with the input also from the committee that you referenced, this is probably the best possible outcome, which I am hoping, as you say, we don't know yet whether this will be finally approved But I am hoping that the very solid foundation on which these recommendations are built will enable us to find traction when it comes to the decisions on the allocation of funds. So thank you for that.
Yeah, if I may, just a couple comments for the board. And again, I appreciate, of course, I appreciate Director Nye and Director Sandifer's input on this. And these kind of conversations, I think, are difficult to have. It's people's lives. I want to throw out a couple of things just for specificity. In the budget, there are a couple of key positions that we need to properly support the caravan service for compliance with FTA. One of those is a reservationist, full-time. And so I want to just be clear that the costs that are going up are for things to shore up the organization for compliance, for safety, equipment, all of those things. And so there's just a reason behind it. So at the end of the day, I think what the staff is committed to is hearing from the board members. We appreciate your guidance. We need your input and balancing the budget. What's off the table today is any service cuts. There's no service cuts on the table today. But at the end, but when this all comes together when we hear from the city, we hear from the county, we understand the Title VI implications, we'll need to balance the budget one way, and that will be generating revenue from some source or reducing costs. And reducing cost is the inward, it's constricting on the service piece. So I want.
So you mentioned service cuts. I mean, we should have a very transparent conversation here. If we are facing the reality of a very substantial delta between the expenditures that we need and the funding framework and pipeline that exists, that gap, we're now asking the city and the county to step up and close that gap with very significant increases compared to their previous contributions. If we run a household budget, and due to rising costs, we have to cut back. You could, for example, decide to stop buying groceries. It's not very pragmatical because you need to eat. If the Volkswagen factory is under financial pressure on expenses, they could stop buying auto parts, save a lot of money. But they would not be able to build cars, which means that they can't sell them. For Carter, our equivalent to those scenarios are we could cut back on service, or we could stop service altogether, to use an extreme example to make a point. Imagine how much money we'll save if we have no bus routes. But that's not very pragmatic. And that is where the trade-offs come into play. So I would have to ask a question here. If we look, you had that chart, I forget which one, that had over the years, the timeline of the city's contributions, which stayed flat at 5.8 million for several years and then stepped up last year to 6.2, partially offset by the county, which went to 0. If we had just maintained a normal, instead of a flat line contribution level, if we had just maintained a sort of a inflationary level contribution increase each year from the city and the county, where would the contribution have been this year? And what would be the delta from that new point to what we're asking for next year? Is my question clear?
Your question's clear, and I gotta put on my accounting hat. The city's contributions, in particular, the city and the county contributed the same amount, which I believe is 5.8 million and 100,000 from the city or from the county. But that was the same for fiscal year 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 5 years in a row. If you had applied a inflationary number 3% increase a year. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do a little bit of math in my head, which I can't do very easily. I think I'd like to come back to you with a formal answer, but if I'm doing quick math, you're increasing 3% per year for 5 years, you're right about at a $7 million request. Scott just telling me 6.96.
Not bad.
And so at the end of the day, our increase or our ask of the city this year is 7.6 million. The difference would have been $500,000. So I think what you're asking me is, if we had had this kind of established like inflationary increase every year, we would have kind of been where we are today. So I guess we're playing catch up.
So this is exactly where I was headed, thank you. Because what sounds like a sizable increase request actually is mostly comprised of catch-up. It's like the dam wall has been catching it all up. And Carter has had to legitimately get pressure on increasing cost efficiencies and cost reductions and all of those things. But there's only so much you can do. We've just heard two of our revenue sources, people expressing concerns about fare increases. So our ability to pull the lever of revenue is also limited.
What is the
What
amount?
we are now, so if I could just finish this thought, because I'll forget my own thought. What we are doing now is playing catch up. And so in real terms, it's not really such a significant increase. We're playing catch up. And the extent to which we have fallen behind over this last half of a decade is a big contributor to some of the constraints that we have already highlighted here. The aging vehicle fleet, for example. The challenges to the balance between frequency of routes and reach, all of those things. And there are more, but we don't need to go into that. So I think it's important that we all understand that to an extent, the majority of our ask is just to catch up with inflationary pressure. There's no ask for expansion, incremental contributions. And the extent to which we want to increase service quality and improve service is going to be largely driven by other levers in our control, such as the fares, but strongly through operational efficiencies, which this new leadership team is bringing to bear on how we run things around here. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair.
Good. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was just wondering, and I know we've seen this number before, I just don't remember. But how much revenue will be generated with the proposed increases on Carter Go and Carter Caribbean? Exactly, how much money will be generated? $105,000?
For Cardigo, we have a budget placeholder for 105.
So by increasing the rates with a variance of 50 cents to up to $1.50 for the year, we will gain $105,000.
Correct.
So
That's our budgetary number.
so if we can get that number down with another revenue source, then maybe, I mean, that's $105,000 and some other things on here that are that are gonna generate much more than this fare increase is going to impact the people who use the service. I'm hoping that maybe we can find another source that can supplement that so that we don't have to go to the people.
You know, I hear you, but I have to say, I don't
Yes.
want to litigate it again at this board. We've gone through such a lengthy process. We've had all the ex committees, the finance committee meetings, the whole
I
process.
agree,
that
I was
brought
just
us here.
trying to get the number.
What?
I was just trying to refresh my mind on the number
The one
that we are
thing that you
generating.
can't please everybody. And I think that's the trade-off that needs to be made. Sorry.
We're expanding, so I'm just gonna go over that. I do agree in the catch up and everything is going up, so I'm not even touching that point. It's like, I think what is here, the way that we are understanding our community, because when we say community, it's like everyone is community, but when we look closer who is using Carta and our services, it's different kind of people. So when we understand that, the people that go to the incline is a destination. So they have free time, most of them, I assume. They have free time and it's most likely out of town. But for the moment, they're part of our community. Caravan and Cargo, most likely they don't have another option, period. Like, it's not close to them. Accessible, transportation is hard, sidewalks. So it's like a very small, a very defined group of people that they don't have any alternative. And as a former bus user, I don't think, with all the love that I have with Carta, I don't think that no one's dreams is to ride Carta forever. So it's like transitional transportation. Like, I started walking the city, I started riding the bus, and then I use my bike, and then I save and I bought a car. So when we think about what to increase, I think I would like to enrich to pool instead of just the service. I do understand $3 in the incline, yes, it's steep, but it's a day of going out and as a family. And the way that we understand caravan and the bus route, it also changes how we should think about increase. So like, just to put more, like, try to enrich the conversation. No against no increasing, but the way that we understand how people are using and the life expectancy of the usage. Because if the life expectancy of the usage is like, this is the way that you're gonna live, to kind of like, the bus is gonna help me to get there and get my car, I think it changes a little bit the way that we should increase each of the services.
Well, I think, the point you make is extremely valid, but I would argue that that is exactly the kind of consideration that has informed this process to get to where we are. And why, I don't think it's been specifically highlighted as much, but the recommendation is to keep fixed route fares stable. Without any increase.
I was thinking like, actually, for me would be to increase those fares.
So,
Fixed route,
Yeah. Instead of just a caravan cargo, or increase more the incline. Because it's like, those people, it's like, again, my dream wasn't to ride, I mean, my dream is actually to ride bus everywhere, but here in Chattanooga, like, you can't. So you want to get a car, you're not gonna be riding the bus 10 years. Maybe we wanna find people for specific reasons that are gonna be using the bus for 10 years. And we have very privileged people that like to use the bus ride. But the ones that can get out of any of other options, right now is the one that they are playing the most catch up. So. Yeah, that,
so we could, of course, and there was a lot of discussion around whether we should pull the lever of increasing the fares on fixed routes. I think precisely this point came up, is that the majority of car users today are non-discretionary. And so our fixed routes are servicing, of course, a far broader cross-section of the community. And the recommendation to keep those unchanged was precisely driven by a desire to impact the least number of people. The other consideration is one also just somehow has to have a pragmatic relationship between the cost of providing a service and the revenues that are associated with it. Car2Go is a very high value product. It's point-to-point service at a phenomenally effective rate. There's probably some headroom and I think justification for the phase increase that are proposed. Caravan was also anguished about, and it was discussed in the committee with very valuable input. These are the challenges that face us. We haven't touched on the reorganizing of the parking authority's approach, where we want to have a more pragmatic benefit to the consumers and the members of the community with regard to parking, where we will decrease costs in some areas, but also begin to move to more sophisticated ones, and I will let the experts speak to these things, where we can also legitimately generate revenues. Because that's one of the big revenue streams. And so whenever people hear that we're gonna increase parking tariffs, nobody says, I think that's the best that they've ever heard of. I think even people without cars complain about parking increases. And so we have to trade off these things. The day will definitely come. This I can guarantee. We will have to revisit the phase of the fixed rates. We are trying to stave that off and spare the pain in our community for as long as we possibly can.
And I've got like the conversations, and this is something that can stop here, but somehow, and this is my take, personal perspective, is like we are sheltering people of the inaction of like county and like the increase that it wasn't enough from the city. So like if we are not getting that support and we're trying to shelter and accommodate and like here and that, like people need to know why we're doing this and in this way. So and it's more time to process, but it's like the sheltering why I refer is like we are taking all the burden for those inactions, for they must have a reason, but that reason is not being communicated to us or the public. And the public have no idea, so we have to shelter from what is happening here. And I think that should be also part of the discussion here, like if whatever we do with increase in whatever service also needs to be kind of like in company of like an explanation of the what. And I think those are the two components for me that I think in this budget we should really consider.
If I may, try to give the board some assistance here. Really good conversation. We have to have the conversation. I would ask the board, maybe we could allow Annie to go through the next 4 slides, which will inform you about what are the increases supporting? What position, like what specifically, what position, vehicles, technology, so that you can have an idea about what's driving the budget, so that you have that first. And then, and ask questions there, but then I think too, when the board is ready to make a decision on this, include your direction on what you want us to explore. It's difficult because this is preliminary. We don't know what's going to happen with the county, with the city. And I think what we have to be prepared for is all types of scenarios. What I will let you know is, and I hear you, like I hear all of you. The most expensive services are these door-to-door services. It doesn't mean they're not important, but I think because we've got these old vehicles, they're so hard to maintain, the fuel is expensive, and we're making these long distant trips when people could be on the fixed route, which is where it's less expensive to do it. Those are strategies. I think that's what I'm saying is, let's go through the rest of the presentation. It's only 4 slides. You can get a flavor for where the increases are coming, question those. And then, as we ask you to approve the preliminary budget, give us the direction that you want us to investigate on, for example, Director Sandifer, what options are there to replace the 105,000? Like, give us that direction, and we will, as we're navigating the next 3 months, we will explore what those things are. Because with all of these things, we haven't even got to the fact that there'll be incentives as well. So this is the preliminary budget. I would request that we can go on and let the team do their presentation, so you have that information, and then let's revisit the board's discussion.
So I would say there's no absence of enthusiasm here from the board.
No.
Yes, it's a good suggestion. Danielle, I would answer before we go on. if we have sheltered the public, you know, one of the ways we have sheltered them is ever increasing the old buses. So they didn't have a fare increase, but the quality of the service somehow gets impacted over time. The city, and I imagine the same holds true for the county, probably had very legitimate reasons for flatlining their contributions, and one of them, I would have to say, we've discussed them all on occasion, very candidly, a lack of confidence in Carter. It's like, who wants to pour water into sand, you know, it doesn't dam up. And there was a very clear mandate given to me and to all of us as board members from the city administration. Get your house in order, give us confidence, build up your credibility so that when we believe in what you are doing, we will support you financially. And I think that's where we are.
Hopefully.
Good. All right. Let's proceed.
So you can see that Scott went over the key commitments for 2026. I'm gonna go over the first three of the strategic focus areas that were brought to last month's board meeting. Each of these has a few example projects from both the capital and operating budgets. These aren't meant to be exhaustive lists, just highlights of each focus area. Capital projects are shown in blue and operating items are shown in red. But as I go through them, I will also call out whether they're from the operating or capital budgets. The first strategic area that we're going to discuss is for business excellence. A key area for this focus area is service delivery and safety. Example projects include the purchase of a bus simulator to enhance driver training. This is from the capital budget. Operating investments include the hiring of 2 road supervisors and 2 fixed route dispatchers. Another key area is service planning and efficiency. CARTA has engaged with CSCED for transit scheduling services and data cleanup. This is from the capital budget for consultant services. This will assist CARTA in improving schedule reliability and on-time performance. Also included in this key area are preliminary engineering services to help identify and secure strategic locations for a downtown transit center and mobility hubs. This also comes out of the capital budget. The next key area is maintenance and infrastructure. Replacement vehicles are shown in the capital budget are critical here, and that having newer vehicles allows staff to focus on preventive maintenance activities rather than repairing older vehicles that have ending support from the manufacturer due to age. An operating investment in this area is hiring a planning manager and an EV technician. The planning manager will assist in developing long-term vehicle transition strategies, and the electric vehicle technician will assist in the maintenance and expansion of CARTA's electric vehicle. State of good repair projects outlined in the capital budget will enhance maintenance associated with CARTA's facilities. The next key area is technology and systems. Equipment for servers and other IT equipment are in the capital budget, and hiring an IT specialist is in the operating budget. These items will assist in standardizing infrastructure and integrated technology solutions. The fare technology replacement project we discussed often is also critical here to update customer payment systems. And the final key area is financial management. Engaging with recently awarded planning services consultants will allow CARTA to create policies to ensure long-term financial stability and strengthening compliance procedures. And as Scott has mentioned, the reserves will be an important component of this, as well as expanding grant funding opportunities. The second strategic focus area is community and customer focused service. This includes expanding customer services and amenities such as bus shelters and bus stop signs, which are both outlined in the capital budget, as well as the continuation of educational transit tours and community outreach programs. Redesigning CARTA's website will be another example of customer focused resources within the capital budget. And enhancing travel training and a part-time bilingual support position are items in the operating budget that will assist customers here. And going to the third.
Yes, are we questions now or?
When,
Okay.
Maybe if I may, can you write, would you mind writing down your questions and we'll come back? I'm cognizant of time and I don't want to lose a quorum. And so if we could get through the presentation and then get all of you questions, please.
So the third strategic focus area is growth and innovation. Both the funded and unfunded areas of the capital budget will set the stage for expanding services and driving economic impact for the future. Expansion vehicles and strategic planning are important components for future growth and they take time. A centralized call center is in the capital budget and the hiring of a customer service manager is in the operating budget. And these will both improve customer service for existing and future riders. Combining customer service, car-to-go reservations, and caravan reservations will drive efficiency and compliance within these three areas. And that's the end of that. I'll hand it back over to Scott.
And I will be brief. Our strategic focus was workforce development. I want to emphasize how these investments directly support our commitment to service excellence. And these two areas start with a safety and training supervisor. We currently face a significant challenge with our training supervisors being pulled back into field operations. I don't know if you remember the picture of when Mark Logan made his presentation. The team was in front of a bus and there were two gentlemen in orange vests. Both of them were former road supervisors. We don't have enough of those to support drivers out in the community. And so they get pulled back, which means they're not training when that happens. So this would add a third position to keep training going while road supervision takes place. And then secondly, competitive wage adjustment. The market realities affecting our workforce stability are real, and we've learned that our compensation analysis shows that an adjustment of 3% in this case is important in this tight labor market. We know that employee retention is much more cost effective than recruiting and training new staff that we lose to someone paying 50 cents more. So we believe we can cut our turnover rates and get stability in the workforce. Together, these investments address our most pressing workforce vulnerabilities while supporting our service goals. Yeah, that's all I have there.
Okay, so now might be a good time for the questions, like for anybody in those areas.
Go ahead.
Okay, strategic focus area 2, and if you could expand more about the reasoning behind the high number for bus shelters. And then I thought we have something related to bilingual support already, so why we need to add more?
I can take both of those and it's unfortunate that Director Evatt's not here because he's really the one that led and found, the study about improvement. So we're going through, kind of long story short, we're going through a bus optimization project now, identifying places where we can pull bus stops and where we need to add. And the amenities, we know for sure, one of the drivers of ridership is having the proper amenities for people to be outside, not in the rain, not in the sun. A ADA accessible, bus landing pad and the connecting sidewalks. It's appropriate for us to invest in those types of amenities to grow ridership. Right there. Bilingual support that we have is not sufficient. It's one of the largest areas of potential ridership. We know for sure from working with La Paz and the groups that you've introduced us to, we need to do a much better job of being able to engage one-on-one with people where English is maybe their second or third language, perhaps. And so the ability for us to provide travel training and how not just send it to you, meet with you and ride the bus with you and show. This is the type of investment I think is what staff strongly recommends.
Yeah, I support that. I also would like to add to that to maybe track that as like I'm gonna use my experience as a former writer. My English wasn't good enough. I couldn't figure out how to get a pass. It took me time. So what I want to say is also a buying power that no one is tracking. So if we know more where to buy, we can buy more. So if we can also, it's a service that we are providing being bilingual, but also it's bringing some revenue. So we can track that in a way that we are always like, they need help. It's more like, like you increase revenue, you have more people using the bus. So I would like encourage maybe to track this effort. We kind of like, maybe in a year from now, we can see an increase.
Roger that.
What other questions would you have? Okay, can we go back, I'm on strategic area one. um, On maintenance and infrastructure, yes, that's correct. Can you all kind of walk me through on the replacement vehicles, the 8 million there, what's the priorities for the vehicle replacement? And kind of help us understand how
Yeah,
we're gonna address.
we can, and this is in your capital budget, which is the large printout. On it's the capital piece here. So we've identified, replacement of all of the vehicles that are past their useful life. That is a huge number in the caravan, service in particular. So this is an area that we talked about in great detail. And Director Sandifer, please correct me if I'm misstating, but I think some of the things that we've heard back from, the Caravan Advisory Council in particular, is when we're gonna get the new vehicles. We have a couple of new vehicles, but the old ones, they're just shoddy. And it's actually almost a painful ride. It can be because it's just, they're bumpy, they're old. Similar with the shuttles downtown and then just the big buses themselves. The problems that we experience every single day are real for the riders. Some of the buses don't kneel. They don't kneel so that a person can get on without tripping on the thing. These all need to be replaced. So the $8 million, the priority in my mind is the paratransit vehicles, the car-to-go vehicles, the big buses, and then the shuttles.
Car-to-go vehicles in particular will become a lot more efficient and close the delta between operating costs and revenue.
It's
For
true.
the new vehicles.
Thank you. And then going to the service delivery and safety, and I know we had a report on some of the updates to the safety there. Just want to make sure I'm understanding the need for these positions, particularly around the bus simulator, but all that are listed here. I guess it's a total of 5.
Yeah, I can do that. So it's 4 positions, but then, and then the bus simulator itself. Here's what happens on the road every day. And so first off, we do not have any dedicated road supervisors for any of the caravan vehicles that are on the road. Start there. We don't have enough road supervisors or dispatchers for all of the service that we have on the road every single day. And so when a road supervisor calls in sick, they're off, and so then we call somebody from training to come over and fill that void. That happens every day. We don't have road supervisors, dedicated road supervisors available at all hours of the day that we provide service on the road. Meaning it's Saturday night at 10 o'clock, and if there's only one dispatcher and one road supervisor, and there's an incident or accident in Hamilton Place, of the supervisors in St. Elmo, there's nobody to respond. This is about safety for the operators. It's about safety for our riders. It's what I was trying to describe about the chronic underfunding. We found ourselves not providing a quality service to attract people that might use it otherwise. But if I was gonna get on my airplane flight and there was no supervisor to call, it's not sufficient a number of people. The bus simulator is a tool in the toolbox that is critical for every vehicle operator that we have. Simulator is a physical device. It's got big monitors around it, and it simulates you being in different types of vehicles. It could be a bus, it could be a paratransit vehicle. It's a great tool to get for refresher training and ongoing. When we get one, every board member should be in it and find out the challenge that it is to operate a 40-foot vehicle, even a 12-foot vehicle. There's quite a bit of challenges. So these are all, we feel very strongly about fixing up the core of the business.
You just answered one of my questions. I was going to ask, why do we need another safety and training supervisor? Thank you for that, but I do have one additional question. I noticed in the picture with Mark Logan, he had 5 people. And you were saying 2 of them are road supervisors that were in the vest. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes.
Okay, so you got staff of,
That they would, safety supervisors, not road supervisors.
okay,
Safety training.
Formerly,
formerly.
so they get pulled back into that.
Okay, okay, well, the other question was, you're asking for 2 road supervisors at $110,000. So that's going to be $55,000 salary per road supervisor, right?
Allow me to double check.
Okay,
It's two positions.
but the safety and training supervisor salary was at $70,000 for one. So what's the difference?
Yeah, if you would allow me to review that discrepancy
Okay.
and get you an answer. Part of this, board members, you are all aware that our CFO has retired recently, so we are a little bit short of, I'll get you the exact answer, but
That's fine.
allow me the opportunity to give you the correct answer.
Yeah.
But if I may, on that as well, not all of the chief safety officer's positions are qualified to do training and also the road supervision. So for example, one of them is a claims supervisor. He's the claims manager, so his job is administrative, doing the claims. We can't pull him into the road supervision, the operations positions. Just as an example.
Either way you shake a stick at it, we're short-handed.
Either way that we shake a stick at it, we are shorthanded.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But with what you all have set here, this will get us where we need to be.
Yes,
For-
this
what
is
is
for
currently-
for the service that we have on the road today.
Right.
Right. And any future growth, we will want to monitor and determine when we need to add additional positions thereafter.
Okay, so that's the part I wanna get at. It will make us whole for right now, but it doesn't leave that much leeway if we have,
Now, this is shoring up the,
Just shoring it
the
up, okay.
foundation.
just wanna make sure.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you mentioned future growth. And I have to say, looking at the statistical reports that Philip has been presenting to us, there's a very clear trend now that we are seeing increases in ridership. And that's obviously encouraging. On the other hand, it's also a fact that we don't have equal rider density on all our routes, our fixed road routes. And if we are now submitting our budget requests to the city, I could well imagine a justifiable critical eye looking at the numbers and saying, with noble intentions, why don't you eliminate some of your really low ridership and therefore big loss-making routes? What would be the answer to that question?
If I may be direct, board members and Chair Denison. The ridership that we collectively understand today is the result of, goes back to my first slide, it's the result of years of chronic underfunding. And it impacts it across the board. So I think it would be premature to make decisions on the effectiveness of a route based on the way that we've cut the service, not invested in vehicles, not invested in shelters and stops, that things that would drive ridership. And many of the routes, I'm sure that you're aware, they only come every hour, or maybe worse, every 90 minutes. They're not set up to be successful. However, as we've demonstrated just in 1 year with some intentional effort, some targeted programs, for example, the Read and Ride program, the board is aware. We increased year over year, we increased ridership on fixed route by over 4%, increased ridership on the shuttle, 19%. Highest ridership in Caravan in the last 3 years. So to me, my professional recommendation is that making assessments on what's been going on here for the last 6 years of budget tightening is not a reasonable way to judge the effectiveness of the service. We need to plan to increase service, increase frequency, add bus shelters, expand caravan service. Like, I just want to be clear on this too, like, it's challenging for me just as a person with feelings, like, you know, I take your feedback wholeheartedly. I understand the fares and the incline pricing. I get it. It's a tough decision. It's tough to talk about. We've got to invest in this. We've got to invest in CARTA. Whether it comes from the city or comes from the county or comes from the federal government or comes from our riders. We have to make some changes if we want to do something different.
So it's like saying. No people get on at a particular point, therefore it's not necessary. But on the other hand, the bus doesn't stop at that point, so no people will get on.
Yeah, and so many of these are connecting routes for people where they're trying to get to our best route, which is Route 4. Like they're trying to get from, trying to get from where they are over to the Route 4, which gets them to Hamilton Place. So, yeah, it's all interconnected.
Because the fixed route doesn't.
Was that?
I was just saying, number 4 is our best route,
They're back.
but then that gets them to Car2Go, which gets them to their jobs, because.
yeah.
Number 4 doesn't go out there. I
That's
mean,
right.
so I'm wondering, the people, I mean, I love that we have a lot of consideration for fixed route, not, increasing rates there. But I just wonder, what's the difference in the people? Because most of the people that are taking fixed route are getting out to this employment hub in the Gun Barrel, East Brainerd area. And the only way to get to those employment positions is to take Car2Go. And so, I mean, it's just a thought, and I look forward to the meetings to come that will hopefully help me to better understand the difference in the people. If, we're considering the people on fixed route, it's the same people for the most part. on Car2Go.
Yes, ma'am. I'm hearing you, and I would just say this too, that I guess, again, space and time.
Mhm.
The reason that Car2Go is set up the way it is because that's where we made those decisions years ago, and that's how they're set up. They're really not optimal at this point. We need to be able to get people to jobs. That's to medical appointments, all of those things. And in this year, kind of going back to that timeline, this is shoring up the foundation as we finish up that strategic plan, which is giving us guidance on what those new micro transit zones will look like and how that'll be a first last mile solution truly. I think we've talked about historically what that service needs to be modified. We're not there today because we can't change everything at one time, but yes, I hear you, and continue the conversation for sure.
So this is an important discussion. It's taking us a bit of time. I don't want to make it longer than it needs to be, but I think it's also, you were recommending fare adjustments. As part of this proposal. When would those be implemented and sort of, what is the sequence of events? Do we walk out here today if we approve this and read tomorrow morning, they've increased immediately? How do things work from here?
No. There's so many moving parts. This is the preliminary budget. And for any fare adjustments that were required federally, to go through a process, that is a Title VI analysis to determine, is there a disparate impact to the community? And if there is, what are the mitigations that you would take? For example, a mitigation might be a discount. A mitigation might be, if we're doing something with Car2Go, the mitigation might be, you take your Car2Go trip and then it's free on fixed route. So today is just setting the table for the preliminary budget. After this, what needs to happen is interaction with the city, interaction with the county, understand what those funding sources will become. It's the Title VI analysis for any of the fare increases, including incline, to determine, is there a disparate impact, a disproportionate burden, those two things for any user group. If there is, identify mitigating solutions for those things, which could be discounts or free trips or whatever they are. There's a lot of tools. And then taking that to the public for public hearings, for feedback and discussion on what those things are.
So there's quite a journey that's still.
There's a long journey ahead. Like that, today's just like the kickoff.
Mhm.
3 months.
And because I do wanna move on, and I know that we talked about this part, I do think that what, Director Peterson, that's one of your first time director, brought up about us basically being in a position where we're having to shelter some individuals based on the lack of funding that we have in the county. I think in our future conversations, we need to look at ways to address that, basically offset it with consequences and not doing it in a way that is harmful, but recognizing that those dollars are not there and that it does have a direct impact. So that's something that I want to follow up to the comments that she gave earlier today.
Roger that.
Well, I think what we really do need to work together to try to achieve this, very important next step is alignment with our other key stakeholders. Not only on the immediate fiscal year that we're talking about now, but also our longer term vision. And what are the things that are needed to execute it so that we all can take much smaller steps going forward in alignment, as opposed to this tall mountain that we have to climb today. Because it's where we are, because of the years of divergent performance. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but if I may, I must, and I don't want to prolong this either, but I think it's just important, board members in particular, if you look at the handout, your full page 3 of the ask to Hamilton County. Because we kind of went down the road of the fair, which is fine, we have to have a conversation. But I want you to look down halfway through and you can see like where we're asking for enhancements to the paratransit service in particular. There's a pilot program that we've floated that would be service in unincorporated county, giving our riders the opportunity to get out of the existing service zone. And although it's the pilot, I think it's good that we test the waters a little bit. We're asking for a subsidy for the regional service for those trips that originate in Red Bank and East Ridge. And the disposition of the county's position will impact what we might do with the fares for those trips. And then finally, the Persons with Disabilities Program, it's a subsidy for the trips that take place within the city of Chattanooga. And so when we're presenting to you the preliminary budget and there's got to be black and white, like you've got to see that the fare in the budget goes from here to here. What's more difficult to articulate is that's not set in stone. It really needs to be gray because we've asked for funding that could help us have some tools for softening that. So I guess I just leave it with, this is the preliminary budget.
No, that's helpful. And I appreciate you looking at. No,
It's difficult to thread the needle.
yes.
We're up for the job.
All right, I think it's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you, board members and to the team as well. We will.
Now, one more question, hold on. Sorry, just real quick. Going back to the technology and systems on the servers and ID, under the strategic focus area 1, yes. And the fair, I know that we'll get grants for that, but this will also help us to address other issues, technology issues within Carter. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I know we've had issues finding, making sure we have the right people from a technology perspective, and then also making sure we have the right systems in place, being able to get those ad hoc reports, being able to make sure that you all have the right equipment, and then the right programs to pull information. So I wanted to make sure that that was included in there, because just when I saw service and IT equipment, I wasn't certain.
Yes, it does address those items in particular. I mean, it goes so far as to IT equipment on vehicles. I can't remember if the board is aware that we currently track ridership on the shuttles with a pen and paper. Like we just don't have all the technology that we need. There are IT services in particular to support our infrastructure. I'm talking about routers and switches and firewalls And having a service maintain that will free up our staff's time to do some of those more innovative things, the data warehousing, the data requests that we get and pulling all of that together. So the answer is yes.
Plus, I would imagine a lot of work on. Lorry fare collection app enablement for. Parking assistance, for example, which is an important revenue source.
It's true. If there are no other questions, we would go on to read the memos. Yes. Andrew.
So, agenda item 9C is in your packet. I'll kind of read through it. So,
Let's see.
9C. It's in
Go
your,
back to the regular packet. Yes, 46.
so our recommended action at this point is that staff recommends that the board approve the preliminary capital budget for fiscal year 2026. This action aligns with Carter's strategic imperatives of fiscal accountability and transparency. And approval of this item will allow Carter to formally submit a preliminary capital budget for FY 26 to local funding partners. Some background and history. A preliminary capital budget has been developed, identifying funded capital projects for FY 26, approximately $14 million, and unfunded capital projects in the amount of $43 million. CARTA intends to submit a request for approximately $2.8 million to the city of Chattanooga for 10% of the unfunded FY 26 capital needs, with a request for a commitment of approximately $1.8 million for FY 27 if CARTA is awarded a $14 million grant for the replacement of electric shuttle buses. CARTA has also submitted a request to Hamilton County for $620,000 for 10% local match for specific unfunded capital needs. For fiscal years 27 to 30, CARTA has budgeted approximately 28 million total, and approximately 5.8 million of that amount is projected to be funded. Again, CARTA's budgeted approximately 14 million in funded capital projects for FY 26, and we're asking for the approval of the 2.8. We're asking for the approval of the FY 26 budget, which includes upon the slide, the 14 million that's funded, the 43 that's unfunded, and the local match that we're requesting approval for. I think many of you have seen this lots of times. If you want to go into any greater detail on any of these specific things, I'm happy to.
All right, I think we've discussed it thoroughly. Motion to approve the capital budget? Preliminary capital budget. Thank you. Getting ahead of myself.
Yes.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Abstain.
abstain. Leandra, did I hear from you?
That's it.
You said that, thank you. All right, I think then it's approved.
Right, next.
Operating budget, yes.
Thank you. Staff recommends that the board approve the preliminary operating budget for fiscal year 2026. This also aligns with CARTA's strategic imperative of fiscal accountability and transparency. Approval of this item will allow CARTA to submit the preliminary operating budget for year ending 6/30/2026 to the city of Chattanooga and Hamilton County municipalities for contribution requests. A little background and history. Annually, staff develop the operating budget based on the prior year's activity and planned areas of improvement. The preliminary suggested budget of $32,739,818 represents a 9.55% increase from last year and utilizes $974,765 of ARPA funds. This budget includes various improvements and revenue increases. Key expense changes include health insurance increase of 5%, workers' compensation insurance increase of 8%. Key positions added including an IT specialist, planning manager, service supervisors, customer service manager, customer service representatives, and others.
Service enhancements include secret shopper service and incline brush removal services. A 3% cost of living adjustment for employees is also included in expense changes. Key revenue adjustments include a city of Chattanooga request for 1.3 million, which is 15% above fiscal year 25. Hamilton County request for fixed route and caravan support. Red Bank request for caravan support. East Ridge request for caravan support. Caravan fare increases ranging between 50 cents and $1.50. Car to go fare increase ranging from 50 cents to $1.50. Parking revenue increases ranging from negative 50 cents to 50 cents, depending on zones. And incline fare increase of $3 for adults with no increase for children. The physical impact is $32,739,818 for a balanced operating budget for the year ending June 30, 2026.
You couldn't have rounded it to $20?
I could not say.
All right, thank you very much.
Start.
Members of the board, is there a motion to approve the preliminary operating budget? Second? Second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. How many do we have? Abstain. Can I clarify, Daniela? Leandro,
I said aye.
you said aye. I'm so sorry. You're so gentle that
It might not
And I'm
come out,
hard to
but I
hear.
say it.
Preliminary, aye, yes.
Yes, preliminary.
Yeah.
If this is-
Then, the preliminary operating budget is approved by the board. Thank you. All right. We've made good progress. New business. Any new business topic, none? Old business? No. Well, it gives me pleasure to thank everybody for a very constructive and engaging meeting and meeting with you. Thank you.
What's that?
Jeez.